Today's episode is really all about, I guess you could say, how badly do you want it? And I'm bringing that to your attention because, coupled with how badly do you want it, is the old saying where there's a will, there's a way, right? We've all heard that. I heard that from my parents. And when you have a goal, when you want something, you become unstoppable. And our guest today, Keith Anderson, literally like oozes out all of this tenacity, the ability to drive resilience, to be creative, and no better person to tell his story than Keith himself, of course, but also when he tells you pieces of his story, I want you, listener, dear listener, to be thinking about how badly you want it and what you might take away from Keith specifically, because his goal was to go from teacher to big tech. Keith Anderson, thank you so much. I mean, from the second that we had this little conversation late at night, like DMing each other on LinkedIn, I just have been like admittedly gushing over you and your story. And so please introduce yourself to what you're doing now, right? Career Alchemy. And
Yeah.
also, I want you to bring us back. Bring us
Yeah.
back to your burnout teacher days.
Yeah, for sure. Um, well, Lauren, thank you for such a warm introduction. I'm flattered. Thank you. Um, yeah. For me, so I'll explain a bit about what I'm doing now in Career Alchemy. But before that, going back to myself and kind of what motivated me to create Career Alchemy was um, my drive in my career and how it's changed throughout the time. I knew very early on I wanted to be a teacher growing up. I went and got my bachelor's degree in linguistics and then became an English teacher after that. Um, I realized, though, that after a few years, it wasn't a good fit for me. However, friends and family kept on saying, oh, try this, try that, like maybe get a master's degree in it and teach university instead of high school. So I did that. But, still that misalignment was still there. And fast forward 8 years later, and I had a pneumonia. I was in the hospital. I called the university, their HR department, and they basically gaslit me and said, well, what about your students' grades? Who's going to grade their essays? Who's going to proctor the exam? And they didn't really care that much about me, right? They didn't care at all about me. So that's when I realized I needed to make a shift. Like I'd always wanted to, but I'm like, no, that was like the icing on the cake, or like the shit on the cake or something. I don't know what you'd say. And from there, I knew that I wanted to move into something else. But for me, and I think like a lot of people that I've been talking to, you become so intertwined with your profession, right? I saw myself, Keith equals teacher, right? But what does that really, like, who am I really, right? Like, besides just identify as a teacher, right? So I went in first, meaning I got clear about what my values are, who I am, what I represent, and really realizing all of these self-limiting beliefs and societal expectations from my parents, from society, and everyone, and realized, wow, there's so much bullshit that I've been like, I've been spoon-fed. And like, so it started realizing that, and really I started getting a bit more interested in kind of these things that had always just been sparks, things that I'd always thought about: graphic design, web development. And I decided, hey, I'm just going to take a class. No, it wasn't to switch careers or move anything, but I just wanted to see. When I did that, I was also job searching, right? But at that point, I didn't have all the pieces together. But then finally, the universe works in interesting ways, and I started meeting more people who were in the industry, and just like really curiosity based. And one conversation led to another, it's led to another, and without going into all the details this second, that's where I landed this first role at Google, right?
Wait. You gotta spill the tea because I mean, let's be honest. Here you are, a teacher,
Yeah,
and the Business Insider article was very clear. You were making between $27,000 and $30,000 a year. So it's
yeah,
one thing to say, yeah, I'm having a CTJ, like come to Jesus moment. Like
yeah,
we get those; those are great,
yeah,
but it's a really big departure. So,
yeah.
like, I mean, the question is why why go from teaching to tech? And not just tech like I
Mm,
want to explore, but why take such a dramatic leap?
yeah,
And what was the impetus and the idea that this was going to actually, that embarking on this idea, which anybody who isn't living under a rock would know is a huge undertaking. Like, I don't really know what the percentage of people who apply to Google and get in is, but you're not, you're not like, the odds are not in your favor. And we're going to talk about those odds in a minute.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's true. It's interesting you say that. So I remember in 2006 or 2007, there was this video that I saw on YouTube about what it's like working at Google and all of their amazing cafeterias and their swimming pools and all of that stuff, right?
You went for the lunch.
I did. I was like, wow, it felt like a Club Med or like an all inclusive resort. And I was like so enamored by that. I'm like, wow, this is a cool place. And I always dreamed, like, wow, I wonder what it's like working there. I mean, they must just have fun all the time. They're drinking, they're, playing ping pong, all of that. Because that's what the video showed. So that kind of sparked my interest in tech. But I also just had a lot of self-limiting beliefs back then. That was 2006 or 2007 or so. Um, but I daydreamed. I'm a big thinker. Why not, right? There's nothing to lose. So that was kind of the start of it, and then actually it coming into reality. It's interesting. I had I had been speaking to a career coach at the time, and we are speaking with her about exploring different areas, right? And I said, one big area that I've always been interested in that I want to move into is tech, like big tech, like Google, Facebook, those companies. And she she said, and I don't remember the exact wording, but she basically said, "Oh, someone with your background, they can't, they hire just the best of the best. They hire people who already have tons of experience in tech, right?" So discouraging me, saying like that's a no go, and that really lit a fire under me. Like, and it's also part of my personality too, or like I don't let people tell me things like that. Like that, I mean, that's all just assumptions, right? So in some ways, like to prove her wrong, I guess I didn't put it so much in my head like that, but like I'm like, no, this is driving me. Like, no, I'm going to do it, right? So um that actually was really that conversation. It's what really got me like, no, I'm going to get into Google. I mean, F that. Like, like no one's going to
Okay, so
stop
so
me.
somebody lit that spark, and Keith Anderson, like professional rebel, right? Here you are,
Yeah.
you're like, I am not taking no for an answer.
Yeah.
But let's also just bring people into this background, because you didn't know people there.
Yeah.
You didn't have the traditional, you know, big tech pedigree. You like why would you, knowing what you know and getting to where you did, like what was the, I mean, yes, I understand she lit the spark, but what kept you going?
Mm. Yeah. I mean, that's a great question. And, it's one of those things. Lauren, that like you don't think about until someone asks you. So thank you for asking me. I think what it was is, I was reaching out to so many people who's working at not just Google, but all of these big FANG companies, right? And I wasn't always getting like a great success rate there. And the
And are
ones that
these
were
these are cold connections,
cold,
right?
yeah, they're
So
all cold. So
we're gonna help our listeners understand the four or five key things that you did.
oh,
But
awesome.
in this process, right?
Yeah.
What I like, so let's just call you blank slate, right? Like some guy, some
Yeah.
teacher guy, right,
Yeah.
who loves ice cream, lives outside of Boston, like
Yeah.
you're Keith Anderson, like English teacher, and
Yeah. Yeah.
now you're going to morph into like big tech ninja, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
using that, and so tell us, where did you start? What did you troubleshoot in order to refine
Yeah.
and to get to where it is? Because I'm sure that your first efforts were not hole in ones.
Oh, far from hole in ones. Very far. I mean, I remember like messaging people like, "Hi, I see you work at Google. There's a job posting that I'm interested in. Um, can you can you refer me or something?" And I mean, no one responded, and I'm sure
Okay,
that
so this
they
is the do not do. Do
yeah,
not
yeah. Oh, do not do this.
do not do. And how many
Right.
do not do, like I see you work at blah 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 blah, kind of like how many do you think that you
That
sent?
I did. Oh, like 100 or so. Maybe more. It's been a while.
Okay,
But
for easy math, we'll call it like 125. And how
yeah,
many rejections do you think you got?
I mean, all of them. All of them were rejection.
Okay, there
Yeah,
you are,
yeah,
batting 1,000. Okay,
yeah.
so
So I obviously
don't
like,
do that unless you have a
yeah,
lot of time on your hands and you really, really, really want to waste it. So,
right. I mean, it's
okay,
insanity, right? Because it doesn't work and you're just doing the same thing again and again. So I guess I was insane
okay,
125.
so you
Anyway,
get to 125, and you're like, I think I've had enough. And
yeah.
then what do you do?
So then what I did, I'm trying to recollect exactly. Um, what I started doing is noticing things that those people were doing, right? Or if there were things that they posted on their LinkedIn, like they started a new job at Google, um, or something, some similarities that I had with them, I just asked them, said, "Oh, hey, I see that we're both do blah blah blah. Like, I'm curious how your experience has been," or just ask some questions that I was just curious,
So
right?
some
Like,
open-ended questions, and
yeah,
note here, no ask for anything, right?
yeah,
You're just inquiring, right? You're not saying,
yeah,
and by the way, I see this or I see that, or can you connect me, right? You're still in that early, courtship days, right? Very,
oh yeah,
very early on.
yeah. I mean, exactly, right? And all it was. I mean, I guess I also kind of changed my mindset with it too.
Mm,
Instead of it being just about me wanting a job, I was like, people, I'm not getting any response because like what if someone came up to me, like I was putting myself in their
right,
shoes, and if
right.
someone comes up to me on the street who I don't know and is like, "Hi, nice to meet you, I see you work at blah blah blah," like I wouldn't respond. I would be like, "Who the hell are you?" Like I don't
100%,
know.
right. And we
So
forget that because, and I've said this before, so you can steal this line, right? Our
yeah,
network and our people that we are reaching out to, they don't respond to us as if, they're bellhops. They don't just like like jump how high anytime we have some kind of urgent need and want
right,
breakfast in bed. So that does not work. Another thing I know that you did, because I do want to give a shout out to some of the technical pieces,
yeah,
is you also invested in a resume writer. You
mm,
also, really did a deep dive on your keywords, and tell us what happened in kind of going through that process, what worked and then what didn't work. Because a lot of people, and I've seen it, you've seen it too, think that if you either overstuff with keywords or even like spend a lot of time noodling on the perfect keyword, that is going to be the holy grail and deliver you that interview. So share with us what happened with the keywords.
Oh, I have a lot of thoughts about keywords, but um, essentially, I did hire a resume writer and this career coach who helped me with that. Um, my difficulty was being a teacher, moving into tech or really any industry for that matter. I didn't know the lingo, I didn't know the vocabulary, I didn't know how to speak about myself. So there were a lot of terms that she helped me with to include in the resume of how I talk about myself, right? So that was kind of my first foray into what I needed to do because I didn't realize how much of a big differentiator was um, the language difference, right? So that it helped with that, and it did help with it did help, I think, with my resume and making sure that I'm coming across as someone who has the skills that they're looking for. So like, I was uh, I was, so this role that I got at Google was a web developer role. So there were things that you put in there like, um, you know, great team player and like, work in HTML5, JavaScript, all those things, which are
Right.
key target
Keywords, key skills,
words.
key
Yeah. Yeah.
qualifications. Right.
Um, and I think that did help a bit. That being said, what I've seen now, and I think one thing I've learned now that I would have done differently then is yes, I mean you do need keywords because when recruiters are searching, they use those words. That being said, like it can quickly become very generic, and then there's nothing that separates you. So like that's was also a bit of tweaking, which to be honest, like to all resume writers out there, I'm sure you're great. The one that I was working with, she was fine, but I just sounded generic. Um,
Right.
and like,
So
that's the
all
issue.
of those are cost of entry, right? Like, so you
Yeah.
can expect that if you are applying for any role, and I'm not even saying web developer, it could
Yeah.
be
Anything.
CFO, it could be, creative, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
All of those keywords are going to be used, in fact, overused, and they're not differentiators.
Yeah.
I am blowing the lid off of our best kept secret, our 30-day blast program. Yeah, you heard it. 30 days. We have seen so much success for this program that past clients have landed in that 30 days and increased their compensation 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, over 100%. Now, not everybody lands and earns that much in 30 days, but my point is it prepares you. And in 30 days, if you're not out of there with a changed mindset and changed clear and simple ways to be able to navigate the market this year, then we'll gladly refund your misery and you can go back to applying now. Check out the link below for the next 30-day blast, and we would love to have you there because we live for your success, and that's what's really important. See you then. And one of the things that I love about this when I heard this and I read this in your story, I like fell off my butt. I was like, man, that is the smartest thing I've ever heard. Right? What you started doing is not just using keywords, but
Yeah.
using specific tech lingo, slang,
Yeah.
things that the way people speak.
Yeah.
And how did you pick up that idea? Like, where was the light bulb that said, oh, keywords are fine, but nobody speaks in keywords?
Yeah. No, never. Um, yeah. So my background, my education background, it was in linguistics, right? So I've
Now
always
it's
had that bent towards what specific words trigger emotions and trigger what I want the reader to get. And also in this case with the resume, show that I'm like more of an insider, right? Like I know how to talk.
mm-hmm.
So essentially that's the approach that I took. It took me some time to realize that. I mean, when I say like, yes, my background is in linguistics, like it still took me time to like put two and two together, right? Like it's not like I had that off the bat, right? But
Sure.
I made those connections, right? And then, right, like I'm able to my resume, yes, like talk the talk on that end, but also honestly, Lauren, there were other things too that like were really that I didn't even think of, but it's building warm connection with someone, even on a piece of paper, right? Like not sounding generic doesn't need to be something where you have this extremely unique value proposition that like no one else in the world has. It's not that. It's about being a human. It's about humanizing
I know,
yourself.
and I you just opened the door for this next tip that I
Oh,
actually call Quirks work, right?
yes. Yeah.
And so
Love
tell
that.
us the quirks that you used on your resume and how you bumped them up to the top
Yes.
so that you could humanize not only your resume, but I also want to say the expectation
Yeah.
of who they were about to meet, because
Yeah.
that's what's happening, right?
Yeah.
Resumes, LinkedIn, call them auditions, call them
Yeah. Yeah.
places that can really start to pre-screen and set up an expectation. And in some cases, if you're talking like keywords, you're going to probably encounter somebody who's pretty rote,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so tell us about the apple pie story.
Yeah, so there were a lot of kind of really quirky things that I've in my life, right? We all have small things. I had been a big baker, for a while, like relatively informally, just kind of doing it on my own. But I did enter a pie competition, and I won. I think it was the third or second place in this like competition or this contest. And yeah, so I put that on my resume in the interest section because just as you said, Quirks work, like that's something that's very uniquely me. I mean, yes, entering a pie contest, that's unique, but also getting even sharing like, oh, we got second place. I can't remember if it's second or third place, but like that is it's just I don't know. Like no one
Did
else
people
says
like was that, because I know also you put that at the very top of your resume. A lot of
yeah.
people, I'm not saying that they're apologetic, but they think it's kind of like a throwaway item, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, no big deal. Like I'll add these things in for a little, splash of color. But
Yeah.
for you, it was the color. And so
Yeah.
what I'm curious about is how did people respond to that?
Oh, I mean, they responded really well. I mean, that so there was a few other things that I put in there too, like kind of quirky like that. I usually have like three of those at the top, and I mean, everyone who I was talking to for the first time, the recruiter, hiring team, everyone, they would always bring that up, right? Then we'd have a conversation about what's their favorite pie, right? Have they ever been in a pie contest? I don't know. It just brings up interesting things, and it disarms people, right? And it humanizes you, right? Because at the end of the day, well, I'll tell you, like when I was talking with people at Google and Facebook and all these companies, I had imposter syndrome initially before I started doing this, right? Once I started doing this and they started asking me these like really great questions and just a lot of banter, right? Um, then I just realized like these people at Google, all these seconds, they're just people. They're just people like me. They're people like you. Like they're not in
They put
some
their
ivory
pants on the
tower.
same way, right? We build
Yeah.
them up. We build them up
Yeah.
because also I think that what's happening in those times where we want something, we need something, we may be feeling like we're in a one down, and that all that power and control is
Yeah.
allocated to somebody else, when in
Yeah.
fact, in your case, I love how you really took control for yourself and got
Yeah.
really creative with this.
Yeah.
I have to
Yeah.
ask you this question because um, I just can't even imagine. How did you metabolize all that rejection? People, whether it was the career counselor, whether it was the thanks but no thanks on the
Yeah.
connection request, I'm sure, again, not hole in one on the interviews. How did you stay,
Afloat.
consistent with your commitment
Yeah. Yeah.
But how did you also not let that turn into cheesecloth and like kind of like
Yeah.
force you to quit?
So I'll tell you, like, I almost did quit. So, like, I'm not gonna lie
Yeah.
and say like some just
Almost,
motivational
almost,
thing. Yeah.
almost doesn't count.
Right. Exactly. Right. Because obviously, right, I did it. So, yeah. So essentially, I was about to quit. My partner at the time, when I was talking with him about this, he told me like, why quit? Like, what is that going to get you? Like, you spent all of this time and energy doing this just to like let it go. And then, that was so great. I needed to hear that. I'm like, oh yeah, duh. Like,
Duh.
why am I, that's dumb. Why would I waste the time? Like, continue with it. But I became more intentional about when I was doing it. So I blocked off time each day. I think it was like 2 hours or so each day that I would dedicate to job search stuff, because I found that what I had been doing is spending so much time and emotion and energy doing these things that I was testing and learning, right? But
Mm,
it
big.
became, I became so emotionally um, involved in that, and I would say even kind of delicate, that I realized this wasn't healthy. So that time blocking tip really helped me just compartmentalize what I was doing there. And also, like, what I did too is, for me, I tend to be okay, wear my heart on my sleeve type of person, right? Um, and metrics and numbers and that side, that's, I'm right brain, like my right side of the brain is stronger, right? So um what I started doing is I'm like, okay, I need to get more metrics driven. So I had my spreadsheet. I had how many interviews I had a week, how many reach outs I needed to do a week, all of these things, or basically it just became kind of not wrote, but like there's these metrics I need to meet, right? And like
Hmm.
I've done my job when I've met those metrics. And
Sure.
then also I've done my job once I see getting momentum. But when I didn't have those metrics, I was just kind of doing all these things, spending tons of time doing it, and like feeling like a failure because none of it was working. But I didn't even have an approach really. I was just kind of hoping something stuck to the wall, but it just, I wasn't smart about it initially, to be
Mhm.
honest.
Yeah,
um,
no. I mean, I think that it is honest, but it's also often, right?
yeah, yeah,
This is a very kind of common thing because it's hard to really create the roadmap for yourself. And even if you're working with a career coach, you're still going to have to follow through on whatever it is that you signed up for.
yeah,
If,
yeah,
if you want the outcomes, right?
right,
Okay. So now you've been at Google, you've been at Facebook,
yeah.
you've been at Amazon.
No, no, not Amazon.
Not Amazon. Okay.
Interviewed with them, but not, I
Okay.
didn't.
Oh, sorry. Uber,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
YouTube,
YouTube, which is part of Google,
which
yeah,
is part of Google. Okay.
and DoorDash, and then a few startups.
Okay. So you had the cafeteria fantasy, right?
Yes,
Right. You had this whole thing
check.
going on. Check. What happened when you actually achieved this dream goal? Like Mecca, like you get to the Mecca, right? You're at the place.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Well, I mean, if we think of like the Wizard of Oz, when Dorothy sees the wizard and she's like, "What? This is what it is." Honestly, it did become a bit like that. I mean, yes, the food was amazing, gourmet food, great pools, all of that. But that being said, I like honestly, I felt after like a month or so, I'm like, oh, okay, this is what it is. I thought initially going into it, I'm like, oh, like I've made it type of
I've
feeling.
arrived, right?
Yeah, I've arrived at Mecca, as you said, right? But then, like, well, it's not quite as it seemed. It wasn't all inclusive resorts like I had imagined that. So yeah, I mean, I was working long hours. I was, um, moving really quickly, which is very different than academia, right? Where in academia, it's very, in general, it tends to be very much a thought focused area, like exploring new ideas, that type of area. This, when I was at Google as a web developer, right, is go, go, go. It's execute,
Produce, produce,
execute,
produce, right?
produce,
Execute,
yeah, which
execute,
was
ship,
like
ship,
night and
ship,
day.
ship.
Ship, ship, ship. Yeah, exactly. So it was a big wake up.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And so you've seen the wizard, right?
yeah,
And now you realize it's not all that you built it up to be, right?
yeah,
Clearly it sounds like, you came, you saw, you conquered, right?
yeah,
That's
yeah,
awesome in and of itself, right? Like
yeah,
massive, like huge high fives. You have high fives for
yeah.
me from the
Thank
rest of your
you.
life.
Yeah,
But also, like, where did that lead you after? Because if this had been so built up
yeah,
and then you find out it's not exactly what it was cracked up to be,
yeah,
what
yeah.
came after that and what is now?
Yeah, I mean, well, first, in terms of it not being cracked up, it, it was just different, right? It
Mm-hmm.
became real. And when a dream becomes reality, it's different. It's not necessarily good or bad. What I realized is I don't like doing web development, and I'm like, ooh, it's fun doing it as a course, and it's fun. I was teaching it as well too at the university, but like in reality, this is not what I want to do. I'm not me. So I realized that, and but then, once I was in the company, especially at Google, there are different like programs and stuff they have in place where it's easy for you to connect and meet people who work in many different parts of the company, right? So I started having conversations with people over lunch, who are in marketing, sales, product managers, other developers, really just like honestly, like kind of randomly, just they have a system where it randomly pairs you up with people.
Mm.
So yeah, I just started exploring other things there and realizing, okay, well, web development path doesn't really seem like I want to go. I did like tech overall. It's very, very, very fast moving. It was like way, way faster, and that was really uncomfortable. And there's stories I have about that. But I overall I really liked it, and from having those conversations, I realized that doing learning development, for like learning and development teams and customer education, that uses my background a bit more in teaching and in education to the corporate setting. So I pivoted into that, where I out of Google though, in at to Uber, and then throughout other roles after that too, to being a learning and development program manager, or designer, and then later a leader in the field.
I want you to share your best advice for people who have, quote unquote, a dream, a desire to, in your case, I mean, massive pivot. Folks who think that the odds are stacked against them, whether it's based off of pedigree or
Yeah,
age or some
yeah,
other, inherent reason why.
yeah,
And really in this uncertain climate, right? Because we keep hearing this, I keep like hearing this over and over and over again. And my belief system is, yeah, I mean, they're going to talk, they're going to do whatever it is, but by no means should that derail you from what you want to do. And so,
no,
what is your best advice, or that kind of most important thing? I have some quotes here, but would really like to hear it straight from you. Like the one thing that either you told yourself or you want to tell us.
yeah. So here's some advice that has helped me through making big pivots like this. Don't believe what everyone says. Don't believe everything you read. Realize that it's people's perception, right? And perception is their reality, but that's not doesn't need to be your reality. one that I hear often now is the job market's horrible, right? It's horrible. You'll never get a job. It's the worst economy ever. Da da da. Right now, sure. Like I know that if you look at some of the data, it might indicate things like that potentially. That being said, like right now, I don't know exactly what the hiring rate is now, but like 100,000 people are being hired every month, more or less, right? Like, I mean, clearly, it's not. Excuse me. Clearly, it's not like it's working, like there are jobs out there. So having the mindset that like, no, the economy's bad, no, I won't find anything. I mean, that just shuts you off. Like that's a
Right.
no-go. Anything you tell yourself becomes reality. It's like the unfulfilling or the what is
Self-fulfilling.
the
Self,
self-fulfilling, thank you. Self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Where you
right.
say like you can't do it, it's a bad economy, I can't do it. Like, yeah, you can't do it because of yourself, you know?
No wonder we're friends, right?
Yeah.
I really, I think we can read whatever we want, but what I always say is someone's going to get hired, right? Someone's
Yes.
going to get hired. Okay.
Right.
And you get to choose if you're going to go for it and make that you,
Right. Right.
because you can be unstoppable, but you're not going to, be able to do it without meeting up against resistance.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other quote I wanted to talk about is the one that you said, that's what's wrong with people in this world. They believe that they can do well by just getting by when they need to aim for the highest. And
Oh,
so I think you really are, the embodiment of that. And I want to thank you for aiming so high. And also it was overcoming so many should, coulds, not, yes, no, this, that. And for all of you who are listening, I really hope you listen to this. I hope you share this with somebody else who's kind of like gnawing on some kind of like, outdated
yeah.
belief system.
Yeah.
But also, what I want to say to you is hang on, hang on. You are going to run into resistance. And guess what? This is 100% an opportunity to test yourself, because how you perform in your job search is wildly indicative of the challenges that you're going to run into when you are working in that job. So
Totally.
embrace it, use it as an experience, and don't throw in the towel, because I love what your partner said, right? So
Yeah.
what's that going to do? Right? That's not
Right.
going to that's not going to make you feel fulfilled. It's not going to change your bank account, and it's certainly not going to give you the runway to impact that you're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah.
So all of these details and all of your key points will be in the show notes.
Yeah.
And 100% make sure that you are following Keith Anderson. His content is fantastic.
I hope that this story resonates with you and everyone who's listening. And just want to say, if anyone resonated with this and is interested in learning more about me and how I'm helping people in my business with career coaching, check me out on my socials, as you mentioned, which I think are in the show notes. And then my website, which is careeralchemylab.com. And right now, as of this recording, I'm offering complimentary 30-minute consultations. I love talking to people and helping out as best as I can. So hop on my calendar.
Definitely. Do not miss that opportunity. Set up a call with Keith. And I can really attest to the fact that, these are the kinds of people that you need in your life, because you need somebody who's going to drive some horsepower, because it's not a one and done.
Yeah.
So 100%. And for those of you who haven't done this, I'm going to ask you, right? Please write a podcast review. These podcasts come to you with like literally like my heart is open, and I want you to also help us in any big or small way that you can to get the word out, because we will continue to call bullshit on outdated career advice. We will also continue to bring you the best guests we can, and to also serve you as our dear listeners. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for joining today. We appreciate your listening ears. Big time. We ask this: use these tools, not tomorrow, right now, and share them by spreading the love, leaving us a rating and subscribe so you don't miss the next Career Blast in a Half. Most of all, thank you for you.